Hi, welcome to another session of Vantage Point, and I'm very glad today to be on the sideline of the DATUM Economic Forum because I get to meet great people, and one of them is right beside me today, Carmazzi, but I didn't pronounce that really well.
Carmazzi. See, you have to say it like an Italian.
Carmazzi.
Okay. Hey!
So there you go, then you know what kind of person Arthur is already, but I'll just introduce to you the background because you have to know that he is an author, but he's also a motivational change leadership speaker. He's also, of course, a trainer, but he invents things too, he designs things, and he's also an architect. But on top of all that, he has such a good heart that he's also a philanthropist. So you wear so many hats, but I'm going to peel those layers one by one. But I guess a lot of times people go and Google you for people in Southeast Asia. They'll get to see you going around meeting top leaders of a lot of institutions in this country or even in other countries around Southeast Asia. And getting people to really look at how they are at work and coming back out from meeting you with cost-cutting measures, increase of productivity, and just plain feel-good factors. So if I can go to that part first, because somewhere in that website of yours, I read this line about this fat kid coming from a farm, which is called stupid in school. It pains me to say this on TV, but I want to give the full impact of what happened early on in your life and how transformed you are now. From not getting a date to 70% strike rate for any approach to any beautiful ladies. So please, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, see, first of all, yes, I grew up a fat, stupid kid. That is correct. What happened, actually, I have a problem with my brain. I have ADHD, which basically means that I can't stand still and pay attention for very long periods of time. So
remedial class.
Yeah, so off I went to the special kids class, right? So anyway, the teacher in this class, Mrs. Kelly, she's so sweet, she's so caring, and you know, I got a lot of attention for being stupid. After a while, the school changed the rules. They said, before you can go to high school, you must have an algebra class.
Okay.
I'm thinking, oh my gosh, algebra? Isn't that math for smart kids? So, oh my gosh, how can I do that? But I had to go, so off I went. Well, so here I am in this algebra class. The first report card. Do you know what I got on my first report card? F! Fail! Of course I was a stupid kid. I was going to fail. And naturally, because, you know, even my parents, oh, they were supportive. You know, oh, don't worry about it. You know, you'll be fine, everything else. But, you know, the teacher, Mr. Backus, he used to wear this corduroy coat all the time, brown corduroy coat and blue jeans. And he had this kind of long hair and these big glasses and a very, very shiny bald head. And he sat down with me after this report card and he asked me some questions and he kind of gave me a little verbal test. And apparently, turns out that verbally, if he just gave me a small, simple problem, and I didn't have to write it down and show how I got it, I could actually come up with the answer. So he said, Arthur, would you like some extra credit? Of course. So he said, we're going to create a game. And in this game, we're going to put a problem on the board, and you and another student will compete to see who comes up with the answer the fastest. And so he did this. Every Friday, he was going to have this competition, and then we would get to work with other students. So I was very good at this game, and when I would win, another student would come up and challenge me, and then I would win again. And after a while, people started to think I was smart. And they would come up to me and they would ask me, you know, for help with their homework, and I'm going, oh my gosh, no, I can't do that. I'm a stupid kid. I can't do that. I'd make up some excuse. But then one day, this very pretty young lady comes up to me and says, Arthur, can you help me with my homework? And I was like, yeah. And so I learned to be smart. But see, the thing is that that was all at that time,
Okay.
I was a product of my environment.
Okay.
I didn't fit into the system, and because I didn't fit into the system, everybody is basically showing me how I am not capable of doing everything. And you know what? The problem is, I believed it. And I find a lot of that in organizations today. I mean,
Okay.
leaders, without even realizing it, are doing the stupid kid syndrome to their employees, without even realizing it. And the problem is that employees believe it, and therefore they are underproductive.
But you're supposed to follow the system.
You know, it's great if you fit into the system.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, let's talk about.
Fine and good.
Yeah. I mean, okay, look at the Malaysian system. Okay, without I'm not gonna
Sure.
say
Understood.
too much. Okay,
Understood.
but
Understood.
let's just say, okay, with the Malaysian system, you have to take certain tests.
Okay.
Once you take, if you pass certain tests, then you go on certain tracks.
Yes.
Okay, you get the fast track. Oh, I must be very smart. Well,
Okay.
that's great if you're good at taking tests.
But if you're not,
What if you're not good at taking tests? Do you know that right now, if somebody asked me to write by hand on a piece of paper a story, while the story itself might be good and the grammar would be okay, my spelling would be bad and my handwriting would look like a fifth grader. They would dismiss me as an idiot.
okay.
Okay? And yet, you know, I've written 2 out of 6 best-selling books.
I'm just going to, my producer, listen to this, because they keep harping on my handwriting.
Yeah.
So now I feel you. I feel you. But
You feel me, man? Okay.
But to go against the system,
It's not going against the system.
Okay.
We're not saying the system is
how
bad.
do we survive that?
We're not
Let's say
saying-
me and you, we're not this, you know, by the by, follow the rule kind of thing. We might have special abilities. You'll be seen as against the system and hence not valuable at all.
Well, okay. And this now comes back to the role of a leader.
Okay.
See, we've got the system, but the system is not necessarily the system everywhere. And here you go within, let's just say you're in a very large organization,
Okay.
all right? You may have the system that the big people at the top that nobody sees is disseminating down.
Yes.
But let's say you are on a team. Okay, and let's say within your team, well, you have the ability to communicate and deal with people.
Okay.
Now, maybe you don't fit into the system, and maybe within this team, you might be able to create your own environment. See, one of the things that we do is basically go into companies and change organizational culture. But
Okay.
organizational culture doesn't necessarily have to be across the entire organization. You can literally do it within teams, within departments.
Okay.
And individuals that don't fit in are the key people. In fact, if you actually think about it, more or less, not every, but more or less, the majority of every innovation that has changed the world has been people going against the system.
Okay.
I mean, if you think about it.
Yes.
Okay?
Agreed.
Because if you go with the system, you get the same stuff. You get the same results. You get the same levels of productivity. You get the same levels of people giving up and going, oh my gosh, why do I have to go to work today? Okay, instead of getting people to say, wow, it's Monday. That's so
I
exciting.
can't wait to go to work. I can't wait to go to work. Yeah, that's
You know,
innovation.
that is really tragic.
That's innovation.
That is
no, that's
just
not tragic. I have to go for the first commercial break, but I promised the audience before that how do we get from very low strike rate when we approach the beautiful girl or lady, and then
Oh, you want
over
the
time we
story?
get 70%, right? Before that, we have to go to a commercial break. Thank you for still being there at home, watching a special session of Vantage Point on the sideline of the DATUM Economic Forum. And I'm still here with Arthur Carmazzi. So I levitated that a
very
bit.
good.
Okay. So before we go to the strike rate of 70% and getting beautiful ladies, how do we link, you know, all the things I've talked about, like change agent, going against the system, innovation, in the workplace to decisive leadership for the global economy?
Right. Well, see, right now, here's the problem. A lot of people have basically been given leadership skills.
Okay.
Okay? In order to be a leader, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. Well, guess what? Not everybody fits into doing this, 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 this. Okay? I can go to somebody who might be a very brilliant leader at home with his children, with his wife, or maybe even with his friends, different environments. But when he goes back to work, for some reason, the environment affects him in such a way where he says, no, you've got to do this, you've got to do this. And basically, he ends up creating a poor working environment where people feel undervalued and giving up. And it's not his fault. It's not his fault. The thing is that, again, we're going back to the system. The system trains you that there are certain leadership models, and if you must fit into these particular ideas. Well, here's the thing. You can't take people who have unique characters and unique personalities and put them into pigeonholes. So the goal is to create a format where these people can develop their own leadership identity and use that to create an environment that supports success of people in the process of achieving the organizational objectives. Everybody in your company, regardless of what kind of company it is, everybody wants to be successful at it, at their job, whatever it is.
Nobody wants to fail.
Yeah, nobody wants to fail, okay? Now, there's different emotional gratifications that everybody gets out of this, okay? So, you know, the thing is, and earlier today I was, in one of the talks I was giving, one of the key factors these days is how social media is actually raising the bar on what kind of a leader you must be. Because now, if the leader doesn't give you the sense of value, if the leader doesn't give you a sense of purpose, a sense of clarity of how to succeed, hey, it's okay. You know, I've got my friends on Facebook I can complain to. I can, you know, do all these things. I don't need to wait for somebody to give me something. I am less patient as an employee.
Empowerment of the individual.
Yeah, so people now have more voice and more power through social media.
If I map that to, you know, what amazed me, because at DATUM Economic Forum with Professor Rubini and all, we do talk about the credit crunch, the global economic crisis, for example. And for so many years, 2003 to 2006 and 2007, people just know that this bubble is going to go, but everybody was sort of in denial. This herd mentality. And these are key top people in the biggest economy of the world, that is United States. And we've heard, even the Federal Reserve, we've heard of Bernanke, we heard of Paulson, and they were all in denial. Right, except for a few people like Rubini, for example. So, if I go to your...
That's because he's Italian.
The caveman syndrome. Justification. How would you see that? Because there's no excuse. This is the biggest economy. Top minds. 4 Nobel laureates or more of economics in that particular country. Business schools like Harvard, New York University and stuff.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much knowledge or skill you have, you're still a human being. Okay? And you are governed by human emotions. Okay? And some of those emotions can be ego. Okay, let me ask you a question. Have you ever, in your gut, really felt that if you do this, it's probably the wrong thing to do, but you've already been so committed to it that you do it anyway, even though it's technically slightly against your best judgment, but you find all of these reasons how to justify it? Well,
I remember in school, you know that the answer was wrong, but because nobody else said it,
and you don't want to show, especially if you're in a public eye, and it's like, I've made this statement, and now I discovered some new stuff. It's like, oh my gosh, I better not say anything. Or in some cases, no, maybe this is wrong. Your brain starts to try to find reasons why you're right. Once you get on a particular track, sometimes it's difficult to admit that you're wrong. And even if you might think you're wrong, your brain notices why all of the different reasons why you're right. And this is also something, again, that happens with leadership in organizations.
Okay.
Sometimes the leader is so sure about how right he is. And you know what? He's probably right for him. Okay? How many times have you shown somebody a success process that has worked for you,
okay,
and they can apply it in the exact same way and it doesn't work for them?
Okay.
Okay? We are different individuals. To create value in organizations and in people, it's got to be more than just saying, do this, do this, do this. It's bring out the, oh, sorry, that was your microphone.
It's okay.
Bring out the best in people.
We have
It's bringing
warranties.
out- yeah. Bring out the best of who these people are so that they can show
Okay.
their value, not yours.
I have to go for the last commercial break, but
Okay,
once
okay.
we are back,
Once we're back.
how do you layer the cultural aspect to that? You can share that specific moment, that after the short break. I'm still here on the sideline of the DATUM Economic Forum 2013 and still with Arthur Carmazzi. Carmazzi.
Yeah.
So you've been in America, you've raised there, and then you traveled the world, and then now you're mostly based in Asia, not far from Malaysia. So how do you see the cultural perspective as the interplay in the office? I mean, we can talk about how a boss should be, we can talk about how a supervisor should be, but there are also underlying values that influences the group dynamic sometimes.
Now, okay, first of all, culture is sacred. Okay, a country's culture should be preserved. Okay, now, within certain elements that can potentially prevent progress, okay, well, you know, there can be some leeway.
Okay.
Okay, but one of the key things that I noticed that is actually perpetuating bad leadership,
Okay.
is that people don't tell leaders when they're bad or when they're wrong. If you've got a bad leader, they never say anything to the leader. You know, oftentimes I find in Asia that people are just quiet. They accept it. They don't accept it. Inside their brain, they're going, oh my gosh, my boss is a jerk. Okay, but in front, yeah, okay, and they're thinking, okay, my boss is an idiot, yeah, okay, and so what ends up happening is that they lose respect. And because, of course, they lose respect, they also lose motivation.
Do you find that in your training sessions around the region?
I find that in, okay, well, first of all, the companies that have really super great leadership and super great cultures, they don't need me, so they don't hire me.
Okay.
Okay? So only the companies that have
These
difficulties,
problems,
that have these problems, so I see it everywhere.
Okay.
Okay? So these are the, and again, it's not the leader's fault. The leaders aren't getting this feedback. So sometimes a lot of leaders are just thinking that they're doing okay. Mm-hmm. Because they don't have the feedback, because they don't have the awareness. We recently did a study on how awareness of brain psychology literally affects the organizational culture and the ability to lead. We studied 70 different leaders from different organizations. Some, of course, ones that we've trained, and also great leaders who we didn't train, and other people who were considered not really good leaders. Of course, we didn't tell them that. And so we basically found that the organizations that, or at least the departments in this case, that had the lowest motivation, they basically were from leaders who had little awareness of how they operated, of how other people operated, of how people's emotions affected the impact of their own motivation and productivity. While the leaders that were successful, okay, those were the leaders that knew how they were affecting people, knew that their actions, the things that they did, how they showed themselves, the examples they set, how they spoke to people, how they brought out the best And sometimes even just kind of, pushed people to just reach that little higher level so they could just be a little bit better. And just push people so that the people themselves would go, my gosh, look at who I'm becoming in this process. Those were the leaders that
The reason I asked that is because we keep hearing that one of the advantages of being in this region is the diversity of the workforce. Because of that, it brings a lot more creativity because you have people coming from different perspectives.
It does.
However, imagine in an office or in a department, if a boss just wants to run it this way, then he has to work with a lot of pluralistic factors that he or she might just don't like.
See, here's the thing, okay? First of all, the way that, maybe you've heard of the colored brain model.
Yes.
Okay? The colored brain model identifies the way that people genetically process information, the world around them. Okay? Now, there's different processors. And let's say, for example, the leader has a particular type of process. We'll just call him a green processor. So let's just assume he's looking through green-colored glasses. Now, maybe many of his subordinates, peers, they're wearing different colored glasses. They can look at the exact same thing. And when they see it, they see something completely different.
Okay.
And to him, it's just so obvious, it's so clear, and he's thinking, oh my gosh, I'm surrounded by idiots because they don't understand. And the other people, his subordinates, are looking at his mind and thinking, my gosh, what does the boss see? I see something completely different. How can this boss be my boss? He doesn't know what he's talking about. And so therefore, you've got these conflicts that are in the workplace, not because people don't have good ideas, but because you're forcing people to look through a particular perspective instead of using and harnessing that diversity, the different ways of processing, the different values, the different ideas, the different creativity, even the different types of motivations that each person has in order to literally achieve the objective. People are focusing on the process of how to do something instead of the objective that is supposed to be the end result.
Is that why when I look at the most innovative companies over the last few years, most of them would be companies from the startup base, Google, Facebook, technology companies. And if we look at each and every one of them, they don't just follow the brick and mortar management system of the 20th century. Google, for example, allows the employee to have 20% of the work time to do whatever they like. Not instruction from the boss, not directive from the CEO, but whatever you like, use company's resources, go ahead. But even in some companies nowadays, it's still a no-no for you to even go to Facebook, because that's your personal time. But in the days of empowering and empowerment of social media, where the individual might just be greater than a Fortune 500 companies, because that one individual can bring down that particular company by just one news. So how would leadership now balance this? Because we are in the age of information society, we are in the age of civil society, we are in the age of knowledge economy, but leadership and management of institution, be it a corporate or public or whatever it is, are still struggling to adapt to that or even acknowledge that. Some say that's why some countries are still in the middle income trap, because the leadership and management has not keep up with the time.
I agree. I agree with that. The times basically require leaders to provide emotional gratification to their employees so that their employees don't get that emotional gratification that is readily available through an SMS on their phone or through Facebook or through WhatsApp. Okay? The arena that we're in right now is one where people have more choice of where they're going to get their emotional gratification. If they don't get it from my boss, fine, I'll just shut off, I'll just do the minimum amount of work, get my paycheck, and meanwhile, hey, I can still do my stuff. And even when I'm busy, how many employees do you have that are busy without actually doing anything? And they do that not because they're really trying to do something, because when they first started, you remember, like, there's all these people out there that when they first started their job, they were excited, they were passionate, they were absolutely just like ready to make an impact and make a difference.
Give 1 month or two.
Then what happened? What happened?
Arthur, we have to go to your website. It's a lovely website. This is honest from my heart because I serve tons of material for any discussion, but yours was a pleasure because it's very well spec'd out. No wonder he wears so many hats. So just go to Arthur Carmazzi.
Yeah,
that's right, right?
Okay.
.com, correct?
Well, that's actually my personal website. See, that one just like for people that are interested in me personally and stuff like that. So, you know, but the business website, Carmazzi.net.
Okay, Carmazzi.net.
Or the bigger company website, DirectiveCommunication.com.
There you go. Because we haven't even talked about what he built in Bali, for example. Go to these websites and I'll get you in another episode of Vantage Point very, very soon. Good night and goodbye. Thank you so much.